Welcome to the Inspiring Computing Podcast. This podcast aims to trigger your curiosity by talking to proficient MATLAB, Python, and Julia users who use these tools to deepen their understanding of how the world works by simulating it, exploring trade-offs, and gaining insights that help their companies add value. In addition to proficient users, we'll be also talking to some product marketing folk, toolbox authors, package developers, and library maintainers to see actually what drives them and what issues are they solving for others to benefit from in the near future. The main goal and idea is, after listening to an episode of Inspiring Computing, you'll be able to go home and tell your friends or family over dinner or some drinks a cool insight of how the world works that you had not thought of. I mean, if you think about it, software plays an increasingly important role in our everyday life, such as in cars, airplanes, banking, advertising, health. You name it, software is driving major changes in every industry. This podcast is going to go and explore how that is actually done with MATLAB, Python, and Julia. We will be doing this by interviewing two types of people. The first group of people we'll be interviewing are experts in their field, so people who use the tools on a regular basis to solve problems and how these tools are used in real companies. We'll try to balance out the users between the three large ecosystems of MATLAB, Python, and Julia. The reality is I'm often surprised at where and how MATLAB, Python, and Julia are used in the real world. And that feeling of inspiration / curiosity, I just would like to share that with others. The other group of people that we'll be interviewing are people who play major roles in developing, maintaining, and deciding what the new features and functionalities of these ecosystems are, be that of a toolbox, be that of a Python package, or a Julia library. If you think of a wider audience and you're thinking, well, what type of things we'll be talking about, how is it MATLAB actually plays a role in developing the cars? Or how is Python used in simulating energy needs for electric vehicles? How is Julia used in the pharma industry? What does it take to decide what should go in a new toolbox? What are some of the best practices in developing and maintaining open source projects in Python, like MicroPython or NumPy? How do the new features get decided and be added to Pluto and Julia? These are some of the examples of things we'll be covering in this podcast. My name is Gareth Thomas, and I, in all honesty, am a co-founder of a company called VersionBank, which is a software consultancy company focusing on technical and scientific computing. So this does line up nicely with my company. But the reality is, on the side, I do organize many meetups for MATLAB, PyData, and Julia. And throughout these meetups, I often find myself asking many questions after the speakers present, and I think I would like to give them a place where they can actually go deeper in some of the topics that have been talked about. My background is an electrical engineer, and I'm just really curious of how the world works. Now, who really is this podcast for? Well, I believe it's for young technical people, probably with a background in maths, physics, or engineering of some sort, who are looking to understand why they learn certain things at university and where their applications are. The other group of people which I think would be interested are basically passionate folk around MATLAB, Python, or Julia. Often there are podcasts and environments where you get sucked into one of these ecosystems. This podcast will try to balance the three ecosystems so people can have a more realistic view of how and where these tools are used and what the best practices are. If you're responsible for creating your own product or making roles in deciding what should go in and out of products, this is also a nice podcast for you, as you'll get insights of how product marketing from both commercial companies and open source organizations and teams operate. Ultimately, this is just for technical-minded folk who are curious to see how the world works and where software plays a role. So if this sounds interesting to you, just click on the follow or subscribe in your favorite podcast player, and while you're at it, do me a favor, share it with a friend who might share similar interests in you. Thank you, and stay tuned for the upcoming episode.